Okay, we're recording. All right, so we're going to start with an Active Directory review. Domain controllers are servers that have Windows Server operating system installed with an Active Directory domain services server role installed and configured. Domain controllers depend on DNS as part of Active Directory infrastructure, and there must be at least one DNS server in a domain. One DC per domain is required, but having two DCs for each domain is recommended. DCs maintain data consistency in AD with other DCs in the domain by using multi-master replication. Read-only domain controllers are DC configurations where Active Directory changes can't be written, which kind of makes sense since they're called read-only. Some functions related to maintaining the AD infrastructure are stored in certain DCs referred to as operations masters. These DCs are assigned the Flexible Single Master Operation, or FSMO role. A global catalog server is a DC configured to hold the global catalog. AD is based on the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, or LDAP, standard for accessing objects. An AD tree is made up of one or more domains that share a common top-level and second-level domain name. An AD forest consists of one or more trees with domains that share a common trust relationship and schema, yet allow independent policies and administration. An AD site is a physical location in which DCs, domain controllers, communicate and replicate information frequently. Cloning a virtual domain controller. New safeguards in Windows Server 2012 R2 allow checkpoints to be used with DCs and permit cloning virtual DCs safely. A DC clone is a replica of an existing DC that has the following benefits: fast deployment of new DCs in a new or existing domain, fast DC restoration during disaster recovery, and easy deployment of new branch office DCs. Domain controller cloning prerequisites. So to clone a DC, you need to verify the hypervisor must support VM generation identifiers. The DC to be cloned must be running 2012 server or later. The PDC emulator FSMO role is running Windows Server 2012 or later. A GC, which remember that's global catalog, server must be available. The following server roles must not be installed on the source DC: DHCP, ADCS, and ADLDS. And then there's a section in your books that outlines cloning, the cloning there. Configuring read-only domain controllers. An RODC performs many of the same tasks as a regular domain controller, but changes to Active Directory objects can't be made on an RODC. An RODC maintains its current copy of Active Directory information through replication. This section discusses the following aspects of using RODCs in a Windows network: RODC installation, RODC replication, password replication policy, and read-only DNS. So we're going to start off with RODC installation. Prerequisites to install an RODC: a writable DC running Windows Server 2008 or later must be operating on the domain. The forest functional level must be at least Server 2003. I would really hope that it's newer than that, but you have to at least have 2003. In Windows Server 2002 R2, you must use the AD prep /RODC prep command before installing the RODC if the forest functional level isn't Windows Server 2008 or later. This command is run automatically during AD installation on a Windows Server 2012 R2 and newer server. You're just saying that to make me mad now, aren't you? Windows Vista, that's one of those the systems that just kind of makes my eye twitch whenever I think about it. I hated Vista. Run the Active Directory configuration wizard and select read-only domain controller. Check box in the domain controller options window. You will then move to the RODC option window where you can select a delegated administrator account. This account will have local administrative rights and permissions to the RODC, but will not have those rights on the domain. This is useful when you need someone in a branch office to perform tasks without giving them broader authority, which is a really good idea because, we've talked several times about least privilege, and you don't want someone in a branch office who does not have experience to have broader authority. It's just a recipe for disaster. So here's your screen, and there's your checkbox for read-only domain controller, and you can see where you have to go there. And then here's your RODC options and the section down here below. Stage RODC installation. Staged installation, an RODC installation method that does not require domain administrator credentials. It's also referred to as delegated installation. To use this feature, you create a computer account for the server performing the RODC role in the domain controller OU before installing the RODC. Click the domain controller's OU and click Create a read-only domain controller account in the task pane. Next, enter credentials and enter the name of a new RODC computer account in the Specify the Computer Name window. Next, select a site for the new RODC. In the Delegation of RODC Installation and Administration window, you must specify the user or group who can perform the RODC installation. Finally, review your selections and finish the wizard. So you can see down here is the nice little window that they were just talking about, your computer name, full DNS computer name, and then you just go on through the wizard. Staged RODC installation with PowerShell. At an elevated command prompt, and remember, that's one of the ones that has administrative rights, use the following command to create an RODC computer account named RODC1 in the csmtech.local.domain in a site named branch office with a group named branch off G as the delegated administrator account. Now, this is just an example. It's not saying this is exactly what you should do when you're doing this. It's just so that you know what those sections are referring to. So add ADDS read-only domain controller account, dash domain controller account name, and then there's your RODC1, and then the domain name, CSM Tech Local, and then site name, branch office, and then delegated administrator account office, branch off G. Staged RODC installation on target server. So there's a page in your book, 233, to install RODC in the target server. To use PowerShell, first install the ADDS server role, then type following at elevated PowerShell prompt, install ADDS domain controller, domain name, and there's what your domain name will be. Use existing account credentials, get credential. After you enter this command, you're prompted for the username and password of the delegated account. That's what that get credential prompt is right there. RODC replication. Okay, I know you guys probably are bleeding out of your ears, but I'm going to pause for a second and see if you have any questions before I move on with cramming you full of more information. Questions. Anybody? Keep going. Okay, on we go. Yeah, it's kind of repetitive for some of the stuff that you've already done. In fact, a lot of it should seem by now, since we've been through here, you should be getting a feel for the schema and the setup, because there are just different sections with slightly different names, but they did try at least to make things look very similar when they use the coding for a lot of Active Directory. So that is the nice thing about GPO. And I was going to say Google Schema, Stephen. The way things are set up, that's the nice thing about GPOs and Active Directory and LDAP. They're all very similar, and once you get kind of a feel for it, it's easy to jump around and learn. Okay, RODC replication, unidirectional replication. This is a replication method used with RODCs in which Active Directory data is replicated to the RODC, but the RODC doesn't replicate the data to other domain controllers. Filtered attribute set, a collection of attribute data configured on the schema master, used to specify domain objects that aren't replicated to RODCs. RODC placement is important to ensure that replication occurs between an RODC and a writable DC. Password replication policy. You can specify accounts for which passwords will be replicated. When an account password is replicated, its password is retrieved from a writable DC the first time, then it is retrieved from the RODC. Password replication is controlled by the password replication policy, or PRP. A PRP lists users and groups along with a setting of allow or deny. The PRP also contains groups named allow RODC password replication group or denied RODC password replication group. So here's your example. And you probably saw this when we were dinking around through some of the screens when you saw the allow, deny, or things like that. This is what they're referring to. Read-only DNS. If you install DNS on an RODC, all Active Directory integrated DNS zones are read-only on the RODC. Zone information is replicated from other DNS servers, but zone changes cannot be made on the RODC. To maintain current DNS database, the RODC requests a single record replications from the DNS server that updated the client record. You can't create a new Active Directory integrated zone on an RODC, hence why it's called read-only. Understanding and configuring sites. An Active Directory site represents a physical location where DCs are placed and group policies can be applied. There are three main reasons for establishing multiple sites: authentication efficiency, replication efficiency, and application efficiency. Sites are created using AD sites and services. A site is linked to an IP subnet that reflects the IP addressing scheme used at the physical location the site represents. So here is an example. So you have your subnets in DC1, and then you have one subnet in DC2, and you can see this one on the left is your Chicago site, slow WAN link, and then you have your New Orleans site on the right. Site components. Sites and connections between sites are defined by a number of components that can be created and configured in Active Directory sites and services: subnets, site links, and bridgehead servers. So we're going to just start at the top here. Subnets. And you should have heard of this. We already kind of sort of touched on this in the beginning of the year. After creating a site, you must associate one or more subnets with it. Active Directory uses this information in two ways: placing a new domain controller in the correct site. When a new DC is installed, it is automatically placed in the site corresponding with its assigned IP address. I apologize, my migraine medication messes up my verbal skills the day after. My written skills are better, but something about the connection between verbal and the brain just kind of determining which site a client computer belongs to. When a client requests a domain service, the client request can be directed to a DC or member server in the same site. Okay, so here is your Active Directory. You see your subnet, And you remember how we talked about, calculating subnet, octets, all that fun stuff. This is what your default first site name properties on a subnet are. Okay. Site links. Site link needed to connect 2 or more sites for replication purposes. When Active Directory is installed, a default site link called default IP site link, I know, real original there, but that's what it is created. Until new site links are created, all sites that are added use this site link. The cost field is an administrator assigned value that represents the bandwidth of the connection between sites. Alter this value to influence which path is chosen when more than one path exists. So here's your example, and there's that, default IP site link right here, and then you have your information right there. And this is an example. They were talking about the site link cost, and this one's 200 and this one's 100 right here. Bridgehead servers. A bridgehead server is the inter-site topology generator designates a bridgehead server to replicate a directory partition with other sites. The administrator can override automatic assignment of a bridgehead server and assign the role to a specific DC. Membership caching. The global catalog is the only place where universal group membership information is maintained. It also contains a partial replica of all domain objects. Replication traffic is increased in sites with global catalog servers. Universal group membership caching stores universal group membership, so the global catalog server doesn't have to be contacted for each user logon. So if you didn't have caching, as you can imagine, your times for the logins would just go, and your user would not be very happy. Working with operation master's role. Some critical information is subject to single master replication scheme to avoid the possibility of the information becoming unsynchronized. Servers that keep this information are assigned a flexible single master operation, or the FSMO role. FSMO roles can be summarized as follows. Forest-wide FSMO roles. Only one DC per forest performs these roles. Domain naming master and schema master. Domain-wide FSMO roles. Only one DC per domain performs these roles. PDC emulator, RID master, and infrastructure master. So, you know how we talked about forests and domains? You can have multiple domains. You can have multiple domains, but only one of these domain-wide per domain. Operations master best practices. Common rules for operations master. Unless your domain is very small, transfer some operations master roles from the first DC installed in the forest to other DCs, because FSMO roles require a lot of resources. Place the servers performing these roles where network availability is high. Designate an alternate DC for all roles. Alternate assumes the role if the original server fails and should be a direct replication partner with the original FSMO role holder. Domain naming master, a forest-wide FSMO role that manages adding, removing, and renaming domains in the forest. When possible, it should be a direct replication partner with another DC that is also a global catalog server in the same site, or be a global catalog server. So you're also seeing why it's a good idea, rather than just throwing things at these AD setups, why it's a good idea to map them out first, because it can become very complicated and you can accidentally duplicate things very quickly. Schema master is a forest-wide FSMO role that's responsible for replicating the schema directory partition to all other DCs in the forest when changes occur. PDC emulator is a domain-wide FSMO that processes password changes for older Windows clients and is used during logon authentications. Most heavily used of the FSM roles and should be placed on a suitable DC, not a global catalog. RID master, a domain-wide FSMO role that's responsible for issuing unique pools of RIDs to each DC. For some reason, every time I hear the RID master, it reminds me of those like flea and tick commercial color things. I don't know why, but that's what that one always pops in my head on that one. RID master, a domain-wide FSMO role that's responsible for issuing unique pools of RIDs to each DC. An RID is a relative identifier, a unique value combined with a domain identifier to form a security identifier, or SID, for an Active Directory object. Infrastructure master, a domain-wide FSMO role that's responsible for making sure changes made to an object's names in one domain are updated in references to these objects in other domains. Should not be a global catalog server, but should be in the same site as a global catalog server. Managing operations master roles. Administrators should be familiar with two important FSMO management operations: transferring operations master roles and seizing operations master roles. These functions enable administrators to change the DC performing the FSMO role to make the AD design more efficient and to recover from server failure. All right, before I hit this next one, I'm going to pause again. Questions, comments, anything you guys need before I start on this one? You need pictures? Do you need crayon drawings? Is that how it goes? I feel your pain. There are times when I'm like, I need one of those little connect the dot things from the placemats when I was a kid. Okay, transferring operations master roles. Transferring means moving the roles function from one DC to another while the original DC is still in operation. There are possible reasons. The possible reasons for transferring are the DC performing the role was the first DC in the forest or domain and holds all domain-wide or domain and forest-wide roles. The DC performing the role is being moved to a location that isn't well suited for the role. The current DC's performance is inadequate, or the current DC is being taken out of service. One restriction when transferring the FSMO roles: an RODC can't be an FSMO role holder. All right. So this is a nice little tool with, a table with some stuff on here. I am not going to go through all of these because I think it's just going to add more text to you guys' brains, but I'm going to tell you, go back and look at this. The nice thing is it breaks this FSMO role scope, MMC, and then the PowerShell commandlets out. So you might want to snip this or copy it out of the slide so you have it for your resources. Seizing operations master roles. An operations master role is seized when the current role holder is no longer online because of some failure. Should usually be done only when it's unlikely the original server can be restored to a service. You can't use MMCs to seize a role. You must use the PowerShell commandlets discussed previously with the force option. You can also use the NTD SUTIL as shown. There's a page on page 248 of your textbook. Maintaining Active Directory. Two folders that hold most of the components of Active Directory. Sorry, my folder just decided to pop out. Sorry, my PowerShell just freaked out. There we go. Okay. Two folders that hold most of the components of Active Directory are NTDS. This folder is located in system root, contains the ntds.dit file, which is the AD database, holds a log of AD transactions in EDB log, stores information about the last committed transaction in edb.chk. Sysvol, this folder is located in system root, contains group policy templates, log on, log off scripts, and DFS synchronization data. Active Directory backup. AD is backed up when you perform a full backup of a DC, backup the volumes containing system recovery information, perform a system state backup. Backup methods in Windows Server 2016, you have the Windows Server backup, web admin, exe, and then you can also use, of course, PowerShell. System state backup. A system state backup on a DC includes registry, boot files, the AD database, the sysvol folder, some system files, and other files, depending on the roles that are installed on the server. To perform a system state backup, run the Windows Server Backup tool or the wbadmin command. To perform most tasks with the wbadmin command, you must be a member of the backup operators or administrators group, because of course they're not just going to let anybody go in and run that command. Active Directory restorations. Non-authoritative restoration is a method of restoring Active Directory data from a backup that restores the database and allows the data to be updated through replication by other domain controllers. For this restore, you can stop ADDS or restart the DC in Directory Services restore mode before restoring from backup. The first option is preferable because it doesn't require a restart. And if you want the full steps, it's on page 251. An authoritative restore is a method of restoring AD data from a backup to ensure that restored objects aren't overwritten by changes from other domain controllers through replication. You can select specific AD objects to be restored, or you can choose one or more containers and their contents. You can also choose to restore the sysvol folder authoritatively, and the steps for all that, the details are on 252. Recovering deleted objects from the recycle bin. If the AD recycle bin is enabled, you remember how we talked about that previously, it is not enabled by default, but if you do enable it, this is when it comes up. Items can be restored easily. Objects were never really deleted. Restore objects with any of these methods in ADAC. Use the restore AD object PowerShell commandlet, or use the ntds util exe command. The AD recycle bin is not enabled by default, like I said, and after it is enabled, and it can't be disabled without reinstalling the entire Active Directory forest. So be very, very sure you want it enabled in the first place. The recycle bin is enabled with ADAC or the following PowerShell commandlet on the MCSA 2016 local forest. And there's your nice long PowerShell for it. So enable AD optional feature, and then it has your identity and says, okay, there's your recycle bin. And it says, okay, that's an optional feature, Windows NT, service configuration, MCSA 2016, local, and then scope forest, configuration set target, MCSA 2016, local. Again, unless you've got a photographic memory, I do not expect people to remember this. You can copy it for your own personal cheat sheet, or you can look it up for whatever version of Windows your server you are using. Active Directory defragging. Online defragmentation removes deleted objects and frees up space in the Active Directory database, but doesn't compact the database. It occurs automatically when AD performs garbage collection. Garbage collection runs every 12 hours and removes objects that have been deleted for more than 180 days. Deleted objects that have not been removed are referred to as tombstoned. tombstone lifetime is a period of time until deleted items are removed. Offline defragmentation is defragmentation of the AD database that also compacts the database to improve performance. The AD service must be stopped before offline defragmentation can occur. Starting the Windows, starting with Windows Server 2008, the AD service can be stopped for performing maintenance and then restarted. Microsoft refers to this as the restartable Active Directory. AD compaction is done with that NTDS util command. And of course, I'm going to tell you right now, don't do that during your most productive times of the day, or it will cause serious issues. Active Directory metadata cleanup. AD metadata is data that describes the AD database, not the actual AD data. Metadata can get left over if a DC had to be removed forcibly. Any attempts to install a DC with the same name will be unsuccessful until the metadata is cleaned up. Metadata that is not cleaned up can have varying and unpredictable effects on the domain. 3 methods for cleaning up metadata: AD users and computer, AD sites and services, and of course, NTDS util. Working with Active Directory snapshots. Active Directory snapshots are an exact replica of the Active Directory database at a specific moment. These work very similarly to, you remember when we talked about using VM snapshots? They're very similar to that. You can export AD objects from a snapshot and then import them with LDIFDE, basic procedure for working with a snapshot. Create and mount the snapshot with NTDS util or util. Activate the snapshot with DSA main. Browse the snapshot with AD users and computer or another LDAP tool, and then you dismount the snapshot. And then you have detailed steps on page 255. And here's an example: create and mount the snapshot, activate snapshot, export snapshot, and unmount and delete it. And you can see down here, you have that NTDS util snapshot, activate instance set to, and then create. It says creating snapshot. There's your snapshot, blah, 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 generated successfully. Mount, and then they have, it's been mounted. And then it's been mounted as, you can see the little tribe there, and then you can go out and quit after it's been mounted. All right. Are your brains in pain? Everybody hurts. You're like, ow, much bleeding head. Okay, so why do I hate you? I did not design the curriculum. I'm sorry. It is one of those things that all of our curriculum builds on each other. And if you don't understand it, you can't do the fun stuff next semester. So I'm sorry, but that's how it goes. All right, so that is it for the main lecture for tonight. Yeah. That picture of Patrick with the board nailed to his head is an accurate representation of how I felt when I first started doing Active Directory too. Yeah. So if you go out on, let me open up our content stuff and course documents and show you guys some stuff here really fast. Share my screen. Okay. Can you guys see that? The labs, these are all of the extra labs for playing around. They're broken out by week, basically. But when you see the week 1 review, you'll know that everything above that covers the topics for that week. So after week 2, These are all covering, there's group policy, more group policy, P2 sites and services. There's some diagrams that have been thrown in there too. Active Directory restoration policy. This one's actually really fun. The desktop wallpaper deployment through group policy. That's how we actually trolled some of the first, what do you call it, desktop technicians, just to see how long it took them to figure out how to undo it. I highly suggest that if you do that, you know whose group it goes to, because you can accidentally send that out to a lot of people, and make sure that you're not putting inappropriate images on there. So just make sure that that is all. Yeah, don't make sure it's being set like to all groups. You can send it to, like we had one that was just to one person, or to, you know, so we wanted to see how long it took. We did things to make sure they could fix them, so they knew the knowledge. And that particular one was a common joke troll, just to see how long it took them to fix it. So they have how to do it in there, and it's actually kind of interesting. And yeah, yeah, kind of. So yeah, there's some really cool things out there. Tomorrow, we will hop on and play with some of that stuff. For tonight, make sure you go get all of your stuff done. Now, the nice thing about you guys having fall break is I am not going to make you guys have your week 3 test due until not this coming Monday, but the Monday after. So you get a little extra time for that, but please make sure you keep an eye on that, so you don't accidentally forget about it and turn it in late. Are you still having problems with the ISO file? Anybody who does not have you should have a C ISO file. Okay, tomorrow, when we get on, if you want to stick around after I stop with this, I can look at your machine. But tomorrow we're going to be messing with those. Tomorrow's fine. Okay. But tomorrow we're going to be messing with some stuff just to see how we can play around with that. So anyway, guys, go do your Cengage, and you guys have a really good night. Okay.